I want you to just picture a scene for a second. You are at a massive house party.
Okay.
It is the event of the year.
Mm-hmm.
The music is deafening. The champagne is flowing. People are dancing on the tables. It is just pure chaotic joy.
Sounds like a great time.
Right. But there is this one person in the room who is not looking at the DJ. They aren't looking at the drinks. They are quietly standing in the corner, staring at the capacity limit sign on the wall.
Oh, I know exactly the type.
And then they're glancing at the fire exit, just checking if it's blocked by a stack of speakers or something.
Yeah, and usually everyone else in the room thinks that person is a total buzzkill. They're thinking, why can't you just enjoy the moment?
Exactly. But here's the twist. They aren't doing it because they're terrified or anxious in a weak way. They're doing it because in their head they're running a really sophisticated simulation.
Mm-hmm.
They're guarding the safest exit inside a worst-case scenario. And if that fire alarm actually goes off, that quote-unquote buzzkill is the only person you want to be standing next to.
Absolutely. Because while everyone else is panicking, they have already run the evacuation drill 10 times in their head.
Yeah.
Before the first song even finished.
That is exactly the energy we are unpacking today. Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We are opening up the files on the Max Energy ME80 personality system again.
Always a fascinating framework to dig into.
It really is. And today we are looking at a profile that is arguably the most misunderstood of the whole bunch. We are talking about the WFU, also known as the Fate Foreseer.
The Fate Foreseer. It sounds almost mystical, doesn't it?
Yeah, like someone with a crystal ball.
Right, like a psychic.
Yeah.
But as we dig into the source material today, you are going to see there is absolutely nothing mystical about this. It is not magic. It's mechanics.
Yeah.
It is a highly logical, rapid-fire system of risk management that just happens to live inside a human brain.
So before we get into the gears and mechanics of how this person operates, let's set the stage with the system itself. We're pulling this from the Max Energy ME80 Personality Assessment Report. For those of you listening who might be new to this, can you just give us the 30-second primer? When we say ME80, are we talking about personality like I am outgoing, or is this something else entirely?
It is much deeper than social preference. Most standard tests out there ask what you like to do. The Max Energy ME80 system looks at your energy architecture.
Energy architecture?
Yeah, think of it as your internal operating system, your iOS. It maps how your battery is wired, how you process data, and crucially, where your energy flows when the pressure is on.
Okay.
It's a structural look at how you survive and thrive in the world.
And today's structure, the WFFU, is categorized in the report as a warning personality. That feels a bit heavy. Is their whole existence just a giant do not enter sign?
It can certainly feel that way to others, but we need to look at their core identity. The report defines their operating method as risk prejudgment and trend extrapolation.
Trend extrapolation. That sounds like something a Wall Street quant does.
It is. But the Fate Foreseer applies it to literally everything. Relationships, travel plans, dinner parties, career moves. The Fate Foreseer has a brain that refuses to live only in the present.
They look at the now, and their brain automatically fast-forwards the tape to the end of the movie.
Exactly. They are immune to what the report calls current smoothness.
Current smoothness. I love that term. What does that actually mean in practice?
It's that seductive feeling when everything seems fine. You know, a project at work is going great. Everyone is high-fiving. The metrics look green today.
So most people just relax.
Right. Most people relax. The Fate Foreseer is the one sitting there thinking the foundation is cracking. And based on this trajectory in 3 months, this whole thing collapses.
Wow.
They don't get tricked by the surface level calm.
So while everyone else is enjoying this smooth ride, they see the pothole 3 miles down the road.
Precisely. They habitually identify where systems will break, whether that's people, businesses, or machines. But here is the nuance that usually gets missed, and I think this is the real redeeming quality of this profile.
What's that?
They aren't doing this to be negative. They're doing it to preserve escape routes and buffers for people.
That is a huge distinction, because I think we have all met someone who just seems like a pessimistic complainer. But the source material makes a really specific point about the concept of hope for this profile. It is not what I expected.
It's profound, actually. The report says specifically for the WFFU, hope isn't blind optimism.
Right.
It's not crossing your fingers and saying the universe will provide. That actually stresses them out.
I can imagine.
For them, hope is the choice to move forward after the worst-case scenarios have been calculated and accepted.
So it's like, I know the boat might sink. I have the life raft ready, and because I have the raft, now I can actually enjoy the cruise.
Exactly. It's a bulletproof kind of hope.
Yeah.
It's sturdy because it has stared into the abyss and planned for it.
Let's get into the control mechanism here. How do they actually manage this massive flow of data? The report mentions a pre-control nature. What does that mean in the context of their energy?
Pre-control is their core survival mechanism. Think about how most of us handle uncertainty. We wait for a problem to pop up and then we react. We put out the fire.
That's standard.
The Fate Foreseer hates that. Their energy structure is designed to run high-intensity inner logic simulations.
Simulation's a really good word for it.
It's the best word. They are constantly simulating the future in their head. I say this, he does that. If we buy this stock, the market does that. It's a continuous loop.
That sounds incredibly exhausting, just running that hardware all day.
It burns a lot of mental calories. But the goal is to convert future uncertainty, which is completely terrifying to them, into present safety boundaries.
Present safety boundaries.
Yeah, if they can define the boundaries now, they feel safe. If the future is an open, undefined void, they feel incredible stress. Their control isn't about controlling you, it's about controlling the variables, so there's a safety net.
Okay, I want to pop the hood on this. We talk about the energy matrix in this system, the IP, IQ, and EQ layers. This is basically the engine that drives the car. Walk us through how these three layers stack up to create this warning system.
This is where we see the actual mechanics of the Fate Foreseer. It starts with the IP layer, or the inner value layer. For the WFFU, this is characterized by risk perception activation.
Risk perception activation. Does that mean they are just naturally suspicious of everything?
It means their radar is always on. Deep down, what triggers their engagement with the world, what actually makes them pay attention, is the identification of a threat.
Okay.
And I don't just mean physical threats like a bear in the woods. I mean reputational threats, financial risks, logical inconsistencies. Their value system lights up when they spot a crack in the armor.
So where I might walk into a room and look for the snacks they walk in and look for the exit or the loose floorboard.
Or they look at a business plan and immediately spot the legal liability. It's involuntary. It's their baseline. Now, once that IP layer triggers and says alert potential danger, it moves to the IQ layer.
All right, the IQ layer.
Yes.
Which is the emotional activation layer.
Yes.
And this is where it gets interesting, because usually when we think of IQ or processing, we think of slow, methodical calculation, spreadsheets. But the report says something totally different here.
Right. The key word here is intuition and speed judgment.
Speed.
Extreme speed. This isn't someone sitting with a calculator for 3 weeks. The Fate Foreseer has an intuitive leap. They can look at a situation, a new boyfriend, a merger, or a house, and boom, they just know it's off. It's a rapid intuitive assessment.
That's that spidey sense people talk about.
It is entirely a spidey sense. They might not even have the language for why yet. They just have the signal. The IQ layer processes the pattern instantly. It's almost like a reflex.
Okay, so they value the risk detection in the IP layer.
Oh.
They spot it instantly in the IQ layer, and then what? How do they make a decision based on that? This brings us to the EQ layer, right?
Yes. The decision calculation layer. And this is the part that surprises a lot of people. The source describes this as emotional expression and release.
Wait, so their logical, highly analytical risk assessment relies on emotion?
It relies on releasing the emotion. This is key. To calculate the decision, effectively, they have to let the warning flow through the system. They can't just sit on the information. They need to express it. They need to say out loud, I have a bad feeling about this.
So if they bottle it up, the system just clogs.
Exactly. If they suppress the warning, maybe because they don't want to be the buzzkill, they can't make the decision. The expression of the fear, the concern, is actually part of how they validate the data. They need to voice the warning to clear the cache, so to speak.
That makes so much sense. And finally, let's talk about the manifestation layer. Where does all this energy actually go once it's been processed?
The report says the energy operates inward. The keywords are carrying, absorbing, integrating.
Absorbing. That sounds heavily taxing on a person.
It explains so much about their demeanor. They don't just deflect the risk, they swallow it. They take the weight of that potential disaster and they carry it inside. They absorb the stress of the what-ifs so that the people around them don't have to.
So they are essentially human containers for anxiety.
In a very real way, yes. They integrate all that data internally to build that safety map. It's a massive lift. That's why they can seem so serious or grounded. They are literally carrying the weight of 1,000 potential futures inside them.
I want to dig a bit deeper into their inner characteristics. The report mentions front-end risk positioning. We touched on this, but how does it relate to how they actually view time?
This is their relationship with timelines. When a fate foreseer looks at a plan, they instinctively extract timelines and cycles. Most people look at a plan and ask, will this work tomorrow?
Sure.
The fate foreseer asks, what is the long-term cost? What is the entire life cycle?
So they are looking at the launch party, they're looking at the hangover.
They see the collapse points. They can see that while a strategy works for Q1 by Q4, it will burn out the staff and bankrupt the department. The source says this stems from a high responsibility sense.
Right.
They want to ensure the team has safe stopping retreats.
Safe stopping retreats. That's a climbing term, isn't it? Like when you're on Everest.
Exactly. You don't just sprint up the mountain. You map out where you can camp if a blizzard hits. If you don't have those camps mapped out, the fate foreseer will refuse to start the climb. They need to know there's a safe way back down.
But this has to have a downside. I mean, you can't live in the worst-case scenario 24/7 running these high-energy simulations without it taking a massive toll. Let's talk about the shadow blind spots.
The biggest one is fairly obvious: excessive worry. It's the ultimate cost of their foresight. Because they are always presetting the worst scenario, they struggle to ever fully relax.
So even when things are actually going right.
Especially when things are going right. The source specifically says unknown latent risk keeps them tense. If it's quiet, they wonder what they're missing. They're just waiting for the other shoe to drop.
That sounds like a recipe for chronic anxiety, to be honest.
It definitely can be. And the real danger here, the true shadow of this type, is paralysis.
Paralysis.
Yes. If they don't regulate this, that pessimistic tendency can erode their capacity to act entirely. They might postpone a decision indefinitely because they just can't get the risk level to zero.
And since risk is literally never zero.
They never act. They might deny a new possibility before even trying it because they've already convinced themselves it will fail. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. They effectively build a cage out of safety.
It's fascinating how this affects their social life, too. The report calls them a reality reminder in relationships, which is a very polite psychological way of saying the person who tells you your dreams are impractical.
Yeah, they're the wet blanket.
Yeah.
To others, they appear quiet, deep, maybe a bit detached. Their words naturally carry warning properties.
Warning properties. Like, hey,
Right.
guy's card, did you check the brake lines?
Exactly that. And this creates a very specific atmosphere. It can make the room feel heavy around them. They are not the person you go to for social pleasantries, or if you just want someone to hype you up with toxic positivity. They simply won't lie to you to make you feel better.
But there's a flip side to that, right?
Yeah.
Because if I am in real trouble, I do not want a cheerleader. I want a strategist.
And that is exactly why they are extremely trusted. People who appreciate clarity and deep dialogue, they absolutely love the fate foreseer. If you are in a crisis or if you need the unvarnished truth, they are your best friend.
Right.
But they naturally maintain distance from people who just want the fluff. It's a built-in filter. They trade popularity for reliability.
Let's pivot to the workplace for a minute. Because while they might be a bit heavy at a cocktail party in a boardroom, this profile seems incredibly valuable. If I am a CEO, why do I absolutely need a WFFU on my team?
You need them for their trend judgment capacity. Think of them as a natural stress tester for your business.
A stress tester, like someone who hacks the system to find the bugs.
Exactly. In business, we are constantly drowning in scattered information. The fate foreseer excels at looking at that chaos, identifying the patterns, and locking onto critical system points far in advance.
They're the ones who say, if this supply chain link breaks in China, our factory in Ohio stops in 3 days.
And this is the crucial part. They actually have the courage to say it out loud. The source highlights that they dare to speak uncomfortable yet necessary truths.
Wow.
This is invaluable. It helps organizations avoid system-wide collapse caused by short-term quarterly thinking.
That is such a rare skill.
Yeah.
It is so easy to just say yes to the boss.
Yeah.
It's really hard to stand up and say, sir, if we do this, we go right off a cliff.
And the organizations that don't have a fate foreseer, or worse, the ones that silence them, those are usually the ones that end up as cautionary tales in business school.
So if you are a fate foreseer listening to this right now, or maybe you're hiring one, where do they belong? What are the specific fields where this warning energy is an asset and not a liability?
Based on the report, they really thrive where risk is the currency. They need high stakes to feel useful. First up is strategic risk control. Anything involving risk assessment, compliance management, or crisis communications backup.
So the cleanup crew or the prevention crew?
Both, really. Second is macro investment. Long-term asset allocation, actuarial auditing. Anything that requires looking at very long timelines and deep industry trends.
Because they can see the bubble bursting way before the market does.
Right. Third is system safety. Architecture design, process, safety building emergency systems. They love a really good fail-safe mechanism.
And the last one?
Think tank warning. Intelligence analysis, social trend forecasting, policy research. Roles where their literal job description is to predict where society or the market is going wrong so we can fix it.
Those are all fields where being professionally paranoid is practically a job requirement.
Exactly. They need the stakes to be real because their internal energy is designed to handle that massive weight. Put them in a job where nothing matters and everything is fluffy and they will be utterly miserable.
Right.
Put them in a crisis room and they are completely in their element.
So what is the ultimate takeaway here? Whether we identify as a fate foreseer ourselves or we just realized our spouse or our business partner is one.
It means we really need to reframe how we see negative thinking. The fate foreseer isn't being negative just for the sake of it. Their true value is revealed when a risk actually occurs, but is instantly neutralized because of their prior prep.
Yeah.
You might not thank them when they insist on buying the fire extinguisher, but you will absolutely thank them when the kitchen catches fire.
That brings us to what I think is the gold sentence of this entire profile. This is a quote directly from the Max Energy report that just perfectly sums up the soul of the fate foreseer.
It is a beautiful line. They exist not to deny hope, but to give hope chance to live longer.
They exist not to deny hope, but to give hope chance to live longer. That really hits home. It's about sustainability. Real hope has to be sustainable or it's just a delusion.
Exactly. They protect the future by radically securing the present.
Listen, if you have been listening to this and nodding your head thinking that is me, or oh my God, that is why my partner checks the locks 3 times every night, you might really want to dig deeper into this system. This analysis comes straight from the Max Energy ME80 Personality Assessment Report.
It is a truly fascinating system because it's so incredibly specific. If you want to explore it further, you can visit their official website at www.maxenergylife.com.
And there's a whole community out there as well. You can search Max Energy Vervik or Med Energy NG on Facebook. There's a lot of depth there to get completely lost in.
Definitely worth taking a look.
So to all the fate foreseers out there listening,
Yeah.
thank you for checking the fire exits so the rest of us can dance on the tables. And to everyone else, next time someone points out a fatal flaw in your master plan, maybe don't roll your eyes. They might just be saving your future. Thanks for diving in with us.
See you next time.